Hello and welcome back to the Programming in Ninox training series. In this class, we're going to look at constraints, specifically a tool that we can use in Ninox to limit or constrain what appears in pop-up and drop-down selection windows. Now in our last class, we talked about dynamic choice fields, but we also were using constraints. Remember, we went here into the line item and we constrained what appeared in the serial number field by limiting it to only those children of the product that we had previously selected. Also, in the options field, we constrained the dynamic options that would appear to only those that were active. These are programmatic or formula-based constraints that limited what appeared in these drop-down choice boxes or drop-down selection windows. But what about constraining pop-up or drop-down selections when the selection is not code-based? For example, here we have a relationship from the transaction table to the customer table. And the idea is that when I have a sale transaction, I should be able to select the customer to whom we're selling. If we take a quick look at our customer record, we will see that we now have a formula that tells us, does this customer have an outstanding balance? Here we see that Karen Jackson has a credit balance of $25. Fred Silver has no outstanding balance and no credit balance, and this customer, John Smith, owes us $500. We see that these two accounts are in the green, but this account is in the red. Going back to our transaction screen, we have used the constraint feature that is part of the definition of this relationship. Here we have the relationship from transaction to customer, and here we see that we are constraining this relationship. We are constraining the records that are going to appear when we try and select a customer to only those whose current late balance is less than or equal to zero, which is to say they don't owe us any money, or they have a credit balance, which means we owe them money. But if their balance is greater than zero and they owe us money, they will fail to meet the requirements of this constraint. We know, having looked at our customer table, that out of our 3 customers, only 2 meet the criteria of not having a positive outstanding balance, a balance greater than 0. Therefore, when I go to my transaction, only those 2 customers appear. Similarly, when we go look at our product table, we've added this yes/no field, this logical field. Is it in stock? Yes or no. Then, when we're in the transaction line item entry, we have put a constraint on the product pop-up to say only those items that, yes, true, are in stock should appear in this pop-up listing. We know the pop-up listing is not the result of code. It's the result of a reference field that effectively connects or builds a relationship from transaction line items to product. Think about this as a highway, a road that connects this table, line items, to that table, products. The constraint says only data that meets this requirement can travel this road. You will notice here in our table view of our product table, of our 6 items, the extended keyboard and the laptop computer are not currently in stock. Only 3 items are yes in stock, or true, this item is in stock. So now, when I bring up a transaction and I enter a line item, I'm only going to see those 3 items. because I have constrained the view. But this can be changed at runtime. If a user receives new product, we can go back and indicate, yes, that these products are now back in stock. So now, transaction line item entry, when I look at my product inventory, all of my products are available because all of them are in stock. These constraints are non-comparative constraints. What I mean by that is the constraint is that this, our B table, or in this case, the product table, which is the product pop-up field in the transaction line item form, contains a field, specifically a yes/no field, called in stock. This in stock field is either going to be yes or no, true or false. So this statement says this must be true in order for the requirements of this constraint to be met. And if it is not true, that means it's not in stock and therefore will not appear in the listing. Similarly, the customer constraint is non-comparative. We are only looking at one field. In the B table, which is the customer table, which is the link that we're pointing to from our transaction entry screen, we see a field called current late balance. And if the current late balance is less than or equal to 0, this whole statement is true. And if the statement is true, then the record will pass the test, meet the requirements of this constraint to appear in the dropdown. When I say that they are non-comparative, it means we're only looking at one field to determine yes or no, true or false, does this record qualify to be shown in this selection box. Let's look at a comparative constraint. Here we have our customer record. And for each customer record, we have now defined each customer's favorite products. Each customer has a list of the different products they routinely buy when they call to place an order. And every different customer obviously will have a different list of customer favorites. What we want to be able to do is speed up transaction line item entry, so when we select a customer and then go to enter line items for that particular customer, we can see that customer's favorites. And instead of having to look through all of my inventory, I can simply pick from this customer's list of favorites. Note that if I select a different customer on the parent transaction screen, I'm going to get a different list of favorites here on the child transaction line item screen. This constraint is a comparative constraint. Let's take a look. In this constraint, where we're popping up a list of customer favorites to appear here on the transaction line item entry screen, we are comparing two values. The value of the customer field in the B table, which is customer favorites, to the value of the customer in the A table. And the A table is transaction line items. Transaction line items is a child of this transaction parent. And it is on that transaction parent record that we have a field where we have selected the customer. So what this comparison consists of is, in the favorites, is this a favorite of the customer that has been identified in the customer field of the parent record of this transaction line item child record? And if it is, this statement is true. And if the statement is true, then the favorites of the customer selected here on the parent will appear here in the child line item record. Anytime you are popping up a list or dropping down a combo box or setting a field as radio buttons or a switch, and you want to constrain the options that appear in that selection field, you can use the constraint function that appears right here in the relationship design panel right here. Constraints are a simple, easy way to control and simplify the user experience by only presenting those options in drop-down or pop-up selection windows where users are expected to make a choice. By constraining their choices, we make it impossible for them to pick something that they should never be able to pick based on how they have defined certain requirements. I'll see you in the classroom. Visit us at www.nioxis.com. Here you can learn about different Ninox solutions. You can get tech support through our Ninox help desk, which is available 7 days a week, or you can schedule private one-on-one concierge sessions for training, or we can help you build your application. And if you haven't done so already, sign up for our free Ninox Learning Lab. We do this every Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. in the UK, 6 p.m. Central European Time. These free hour-long sessions enable you to learn more about Ninox, features, functions, and solutions. We have open Q&A where you can get answers to all your Ninox questions, and you can meet other members of the global Ninox community. We look forward to seeing you there.